All right. Well, welcome to the Chantay Golson Show. So excited that you are here. You know the audience. It is small business owners who've been in business for quite some time, ages from about 44 to 66 plus, as well as those great executive C-level and above. Today, we have a meaty and juicy topic that we're really going to dive in today, and I'm pretty excited about this. Can you imagine going 30 years in insomnia? Can you imagine having insomnia for 30 years? Oh, our next guest is going to tell us what this really is and her personal experiences around that. She's overcome insomnia and the difficulties in sleeping and using medications and other things to help her. She is now a sleep coach. And I'm so glad to welcome Lana Walsh. She's again here to help us to understand the importance of sleep. Not only is sleep relevant to self-care, but it is so much more relevant than what we really think. So I want to tell you a little bit about Miss Walsh as this sleep coach who helps people overcome sleeplessness to regain their time, their energy, the productivity. As I may mention, 30 years of insomnia and decades of dependence on sleep medication. And that's a big wow right there for me. But she's knowing that the understanding of nothing worse than not getting proper sleep, gain some awareness and acknowledgement for her. And so as she helps many people, she helped them find the results and turn their lives around as a CBT-i coach and conscious EFT level 1 and 2 practitioner. Everybody clap your hands. Put your coffee down, slide into this attention, and let's get started. Welcome, Ms. Walsh. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today.
Absolutely. I'm looking for some meaty and juicy information that's going to be able to help us all concerning self-care and our sleep. So why don't we just jump on into this particular topic today? Now, I understand that it is one thing and one thing only that you wish individuals really understood about sleep. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, it is the 8-hour sleep myth.
Okay.
We have been told our entire lives that you need a minimum of 8 hours of sleep per night in order to have maximum productivity and health and life and everything.
Yeah.
And so I want people to know that that is actually not the truth.
What? Really?
That's true. It is so true. There is a massive amount of research that shows that 8 hours of sleep is not the ideal. It's actually 7 hours of sleep is the ideal.
Okay.
But the other thing I want people to know about this is that we've been told that if you don't get your 8 hours of sleep per night, that sleep loss accumulates into a sleep debt that needs to be made up. So for example, I read a blog here the other day that said, if you only slept 6 hours per night for an entire week, you would have a 14-hour sleep debt that you would need to make up over the weekend and the following week. Well, first of all, let's just try and do the math on that. You know what that looks like? We would have to sleep our 8 hours per night, our minimum, plus 2 more hours per night for the whole next week to make up that 14-hour sleep debt. That's 10 hours of sleep per night for an entire week. So if we do the math, sorry.
Some people may say, now that sounds pretty good to me. Yeah. So in light of this, understanding that from a healthcare provider myself, I understand that it is a one, it's individualized because we have a lot of people that can thrive off 4 hours, 6 hours. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't need the proper amount of sleep. It's just that people are used to their routine and so much of busyness that they think that the lack of sleep would help them to thrive greater in their productivity. So tell me this, what is the most important thing for people who are having this trouble to understand about their sleeplessness?
Well, I think it's important to understand that we have created habits for people who have trouble sleeping, especially a long time like me. You actually develop habits that contribute to your inability to sleep. And like you say, lots of people think, well, if I get my 4 hours of sleep and I'm still productive, then it's okay. Well, you're just contributing to the fact that you're not going to be able to sleep any longer because you've developed such a habit of not sleeping that long. And the research actually shows the minimum required sleep is 5.5 hours.
Okay.
So, for those who are getting 4 hours per night, they're probably having some weekends where they're sleeping longer to try and make up some of that lost sleep. When it's under 5.5 hours, then our brain actually does try to make up that sleep.
That's an interesting thing for me. So how do you think the brain employs the ability to make this up?
So it's because your brain doesn't try to make up all the different stages of sleep. So you probably know that we have light sleep, deep sleep, and REM or dream sleep, right?
Yes.
So the most important stages of sleep are your dream sleep and your deep sleep. And so what the brain does to make up that sleep loss is it extends the length of time you're in deep sleep or dream sleep.
Okay.
To make up that lost sleep. So it doesn't even try to make up light sleep. It's not a necessary part of our sleep cycle. It's just what helps make us feel good about our sleep is getting that light sleep. Light sleep makes up about half of our night. So,
okay. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, so you'll have more. Sorry.
Sure. No, I was just stating that there are stages to sleep. And so it takes us those segments of series or stages of sleep to get into that REM sleep or that deep sleep. So with that being stated, what can we do better as entrepreneurs, as executives to, number one, be aware of these habits that are self-sabotaging, and what do we need to do about that in order to increase a greater night's sleep so that we can get up and be on point, our brain can be thinking correctly, our energy level can go, and we can be more productive. So help us really understand this from a practical point of view.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I tell everybody is do not be in bed for more than 8 hours in a night. We have a sleep system and a wakefulness system. So our sleep system is active for about 8 hours and our wakefulness system is active for about 16 hours. So if you're spending 9-10 hours in bed, you're not giving your wakefulness system enough time to do its job, which is to build up a sleep neurotransmitter called adenosine. And if you don't have that built up enough, it's going to be hard to go to sleep and it's going to be hard to stay into a deep sleep. So that's the first thing. If you're the type to stay in bed, especially if you sleep in on the weekends, that really disrupts your pattern. And that leads into the second thing, which is to keep a standard sleep, go to bed time and get up time. Like keep that really standardized, because we have a 24-hour circadian rhythm. And it's a really delicate balance, as anybody who's, gone through the time change or traveled and got jet lag, that cycle gets disrupted quite easily, even by 1 hour difference. So making sure you go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time every day, and making sure you have enough time awake to build up that adenosine level.
Okay. So while that's interesting and informative, how does someone really understand this from a practical point of view? Now, you are a CBT-i coach, and I'm pretty sure people are asking what exactly is that. But I wonder if they're also asking more of, okay, if you're saying do not stay in the bed more than 8 hours, yet I'm still tired and I can't function, then what am I to do, number one? And number two, what are some strategies, again, that can help me through this? Because if I am still tired, I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to stay in a bed. So what does a CBT-i coach really help individuals understand from a mindset point of view, from a practical point of view, and from strategies point of view, what to do about this?
Well, the first thing with mindset is to understand that you're likely getting enough sleep. 5.5 hours is that minimum requirement. So as long as you're getting 5.5 hours of sleep, then you've gotten enough sleep to get through your day. It's not going to affect your health. It's not going to affect your ability to be productive. What it is going to affect, though, is likely your mood. That's the biggest challenge most insomniacs have, is that they have a bad mood after a bad night of sleep. So the mindset piece is to understand that you are likely getting enough sleep. And if you can remind yourself of that, get yourself through the day, you'll feel a lot less stress. That'll also help you feel a lot less stress at night when you wake up in the middle of the night or you have trouble going to sleep, to remember that your brain is going to do what it can to make up this necessary sleep it needs. So to remind yourself that, if you get between 6 and 8 hours of sleep per night, that is the standard number of hours of sleep that you need. So if you can remind yourself, part of that mindset thing, affirmations, I'm getting enough sleep, it's not going to affect my productivity, it's not going to affect my health, I'm going to be okay. The strategies are, so when I say get up at the same time every day and go to bed every day, if you have a problem going to sleep or staying asleep, part of your problem is that your bed has become a cue for wakefulness. So like Pavlov's dog learned how to salivate at the sound of a bell.
Right.
As poor sleepers, we've learned that the bed is a place to be awake, to think, to be creative, all those things that happen in the middle of the night when you can't sleep. And that's because poor sleepers spend a third of the night awake and restless on average. Good sleepers, they only spend 5% to 10% of the night awake. So the goal with setting that schedule, go to bed at the right time, get up at the right time, over time, your body adjusts to that schedule. So in the beginning, it will be hard. This is the hardest week. I do a 6-week coaching program, and the week that we start doing sleep scheduling is the hardest for everyone, because they're spending less time in bed and it feels like you're getting less sleep. But it's all about resetting your circadian rhythm. Now, to help you get through those challenges, so when you wake up and you're tired and you want to go back to sleep, to get through that, you want to, first thing in the morning, make sure you have something interesting to do, something you really want to do. Like for me, I would get up and I would read and learn something. That's what I always want to do. Other people, they like to work out, so go work out. Get bright light first thing in the morning, like sit in front of an east-facing window with your coffee, get that sunlight in so that the melatonin production stops. So that'll help you get going in the morning. I'm also a fan of naps. So if you are really struggling throughout the day, have a short nap, less than 45 minutes. Once you hit 45 minutes, then you hit deep sleep. And then that's really, really hard to wake up and feel engaged and awake. So make sure it's less than 45 minutes and try to nap before 4 p.m. And then you can also do some activity. Part of our circadian rhythm is our body temperature. Our body temperature actually fluctuates throughout the day. And so when our body temperature is high, as anybody who's tried to sleep in the summer when it's hot out and you can't, when our body temperature is higher, it's much harder for us to sleep, because it's not a cue. It's a cue for wakefulness, having a high body temperature. So getting a little bit of exercise will also help boost your energy.
All right. So for those that may need to go back to 101, tell us what exactly the signs or the symptoms of being someone with insomnia.
Yeah, well, okay. Insomnia is defined as there's two kinds. There's sleep onset insomnia, which is taking an hour or more to go to sleep. And there's sleep maintenance insomnia, which is taking an hour or more to go back to sleep after waking during the night. Most people who have insomnia maybe don't call it insomnia. They wake up in the middle of the night and they can't go back to sleep. They might not call it insomnia, but that's the true definition of it. And if that happens more than 3 nights a week over several months, then that's a chronic insomnia. Now, most people have insomnia during really life-challenging events. So like a death of somebody significant in your life, a divorce, maybe starting a business is people have insomnia when they're in business and things are going on in their business. Like, it's really difficult sometimes to keep that stress from affecting your sleep. And that's usually what precipitates a person's sleeplessness and insomnia. And the problem is that you become anxious and frustrated lying awake at night during those stressful life events when you should expect to have some kind of insomnia. But then you get frustrated and anxious, and then you start to anticipate not sleeping. And that's what turns your bed into that cue for sleeplessness.
So basically, the habit of not sleeping teaches you that you won't sleep. So therefore, you keep that in your mind. Okay.
Right. Like, your subconscious brain just sort of absorbs all that information, and then it starts responding without your conscious brain even being aware of it. And that's what's happened with people who have trouble sleeping.
Okay. At what age do you think in your studies as a CBT-i coach, is there a certain age that insomnia can take place? Is there a certain trigger that causes that? Or is it's just a random thing?
It really is random. Like, for me, it started for me when I was a teenager because I actually have a sleep disorder. I have restless leg syndrome.
Okay.
So that's an uncontrollable urge to move my legs that gets worse with tiredness. So it's worse at night. And, for me, I didn't know I had it for over a decade. And, so it would just keep me awake at night. And then, so that got me into that whole state of insomnia where it became a learned behavior. I tried to do different things like sleeping in or taking too long of naps and, maybe having a glass of wine to try and get to sleep, or drinking too much caffeine. And that all added to my insomnia. Now, for most people, it starts because of a stressful life event, which can happen at any time.
Yeah. Like being anxious in their business, or having a project that they are worried about, things of that particular nature.
Right. Yeah. And like 60% of the population will likely have insomnia at some point in their life. And 15 to 20% of them will become a chronic problem. So yeah, it's not necessarily like that's usually what starts it, but doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to become an insomniac because you have a stressful life event. Just most common precipitator. And that's another strategy I can share with your audience is find a way to relieve your stress.
Yes.
So whether that's, meditation, yoga, exercise, I teach EFT or tapping, some way of relieving your stress every day will help you tremendously in sleeping better, because it is one of the biggest reasons why people can't sleep. Even good sleepers have trouble sleeping on stressful days.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with self-care. You should always have some means of caring for yourself and advocating for your space, your energy, and your time. That's what I teach. And so with that being stated, a lot of people feel like self-care is going to the spa or doing this. No. It's small micro things that you incorporate every single day. It could be stopping for 5 minutes in your office, picking up a book that you enjoy, just to get your mental self away from the work environment. It could be taking a walk around the building. It could be calling someone, a close friend, to just laugh for a little bit. So it's just small things that you incorporate in your day, which is considered to be self-care. So we would encourage you to incorporate self-care on a very regular basis so that you can relieve the triggers and the stress and be resilient to emotional impacts that happen during your day. Now, Ms. Walsh, one thing that I want to ask you is, COVID is here. We don't like to talk much about it anymore, per se. One day, everybody's going to decide to start back traveling. And you talked about the offset of sleep per changes in time zones and et cetera. So let's talk just a few minutes or so about the advice you have around that.
Yeah. So the time change is a good example. It's kind of like jet lag. Even sleeping in is a bit like jet lag when you have that hour difference. So when you're dealing with traveling, east specifically,
Okay.
you want to start by a few days before you're going to travel. You're going to start by getting up like a half an hour earlier, and then go to bed a half hour earlier that night. And then the next day you'll get up a half hour earlier again. So now you're an hour earlier than normal. And you're going to go to bed another half hour earlier. So then when you get there, you're on the proper time schedule.
I see. So you're slowly incorporating these 30-minute increments to help you to be okay as you travel. So that's an interesting concept. Never heard of that. That's quite interesting.
Yeah. And so it's about getting your body closer to the time zone that you're going to be in, so that when you get there, it's not as difficult a change. Right?
So how do you help others to understand the big time zone differences?
The big time zone differences are a little bit different because if it's a 12-hour difference, there's no way you're going to be able to reset your clock. So when you get there, it's to try and get yourself on that time schedule as quickly as possible by staying up as late as you can. So if you know what I mean? So if it's midnight there, when you get there, go to sleep right away and get up as early as you normally would. So you'd have a short night that night. But if it was midnight here and you get there at midnight or at noon, then you would want to stay up as late as you possibly can, 8, 9 o'clock, so you can get on their time zone as quickly as possible. And to use naps.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to use naps. Use some exercise, get the bright light. If you get there from at nighttime to a morning time, spend time outside, sunlight in the eyes, help you stay awake. Yeah. So it's trying to get yourself onto their time schedule as quickly as possible by doing as much as you can.
Right. And, as we begin to close, I would say to the audience, while I understand that you have a lot of things to do, a lot of things to check off on your list, it is important that you advocate for yourself and take some time intentionally to do some of these particular things. Even if it's just 1 or 2, you are the author most times of your day. And so don't allow your day to go without you rejuvenating yourself. And that's through these strategies that we're talking about for self-care. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to tell people no or later. Don't be afraid to say, need to go to my hotel room or et cetera when we're talking about traveling. But beyond all, be okay with advocating for yourself and setting up boundaries in order to have efficient sleep. So if there's an office party or there's a personal party and you have to get up for the work, put some strategies and some limitations in place for you so that you can know that you are going to get a healthy amount of sleep. Because you have a team to run, you have some vendors to deal with, you got some contracts to read, and so you don't want to skip a beat and not be able to comprehend what you need to do. Because we're talking about building up your bottom lines, building up your productivity, and sometimes we got to be aware of the self-sabotaging behaviors that we do. Well, I would like to thank Ms. Walsh for joining us today. How can they get a hold of you if they would like to learn more from you?
Sure, you can go to my website. It's lanawalshcoaching.ca. And there's a link in there to contact me if you want to have a 30-minute consultation. I'd be happy to chat with you about your sleep.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And go ahead and check her out, see how well you can do with greater and better sleep. It's an awesome thing to get some good sleep. I am a witness. All right, well, thank you so much, audience. Feel free to check back in on next Thursday. We drop a new podcast every Thursday. If you want to see the video portion of this podcast, go to the YouTube channel, the Chantay Golson Show. Its handle on YouTube is Chantay Golson International. So we'll see you at the next podcast. Everybody take care of themselves. Bye for now. Mm-hmm.